The heat was unbearable. Travis Coleman had been walking through the red desert for 3 days straight, and every step felt like his last. His salvage ship, the Mercy Runner, had crashed on this forgotten planet called Drakkar 7, and now he was completely alone. Well, almost alone. His ship's computer had died in the crash, his communication system was fried, and worst of all, his water recycler had shattered into 1,000 pieces. Travis looked down at the 2 canteens hanging from his belt. That was it. That was all the water he had left in this hellish place. He'd been rationing carefully, taking tiny sips every few hours, but he knew the math wasn't in his favor. The old colony beacon was still somewhere ahead, maybe a full day's walk if he didn't collapse first. That beacon was his only hope for sending a distress signal strong enough to reach the nearest station. The planet around him looked like something out of a nightmare. Red sand stretched in every direction, broken only by jagged rock formations that seemed to pierce the orange sky. The sun here was dying, they said. Growing hotter and more unstable with each passing year. That's why everyone had abandoned this world decades ago. Nobody lived here anymore. Nobody sane anyway. Travis pulled his environmental suit tighter, even though it didn't help much. The suit was supposed to regulate his body temperature, but it was already working overtime. Little red warnings kept flashing on his wrist display, telling him things he already knew. Temperature critical. Hydration low. Heat exhaustion imminent. Yeah, no kidding. He took another step, then another. His boots sank into the loose sand, making every movement twice as hard. The wind picked up, throwing hot dust into his face shield. Through the haze, he thought he saw something moving in the distance. Probably just another mirage. He'd seen dozens of them over the past few days. His mind playing tricks on him, showing him water that didn't exist, rescue ships that never landed. But this one didn't disappear. The shape grew clearer as he got closer. It was small, definitely not human-sized. Travis raised his scanner with a shaking hand, squinting through the display. The readings came back confused, showing some kind of biological signature but nothing that matched his database of known species in this sector. Then the shape fell. Just collapsed forward into the sand and didn't get back up. Travis forgot about his own exhaustion and broke into a stumbling run. His suit screamed more warnings at him, telling him he was pushing his body too hard, that his core temperature was spiking dangerously. He ignored them all. Something living was out here and it was in trouble. When he reached the fallen figure, Travis dropped to his knees in the sand. It was a child. Not a human child, but a child nonetheless. The being had scales that shimmered in the brutal sunlight, catching the light like broken glass. They were beautiful colors, blues and greens and purples, but they looked wrong. Cracked. Dried out. Like a riverbed that hadn't seen water in years. The child's body was small and delicate, with wings folded against its back. Travis recognized the species now. Drakkari. Dragon-descended people from the volcanic worlds in the outer rim. He'd met a few adults before, massive and powerful, able to breathe fire and survive in conditions that would kill most species. But this was just a kid, maybe 8 or 9 years old if he was guessing right. The young Drakkari's eyes fluttered open. They were golden like molten metal but dim. So very dim. The kid looked up at Travis with an expression that needed no translation. Pure desperation. The kind of look that crosses all species boundaries. "Please, sir," the child whispered in broken standard language, each word clearly painful to speak. "Just one sip of water." Travis felt his heart stop. He looked down at his belt at the 2 canteens hanging there. His survival depended on those canteens. 2 days' worth of water if he was careful. Maybe 3 if he really pushed it and barely drank anything. The colony beacon was still so far away. The temperature was only going to get worse. His suit was already failing. 1 sip. The kid was only asking for 1 sip. Travis's hand moved to the canteen, his fingers wrapping around the warm metal. His rational mind started doing the calculations automatically. If he gave away even a little water, his odds of survival dropped significantly. The math was simple and brutal. Every drop counted out here. Every single drop could mean the difference between making it to that beacon or dying in the sand. The Drakkari child looked up at him with those fading golden eyes, waiting. Not demanding, not grabbing. Just hoping. Just a kid who wanted to live. Travis thought about his own childhood back on Earth. He thought about the times he'd been thirsty after playing outside, coming home to his mom who always had a cold glass of water waiting. He thought about what his father had taught him, about what it meant to be human, about the choices that defined who you were when nobody was watching. His hand trembled as he unscrewed the cap. The water inside sloshed slightly, each sound like a countdown to his own death. He could take it back. He could give just a sip like the kid asked. One small sip wouldn't doom him completely. But looking at those cracked scales, at that small body that had clearly been suffering for days, Travis knew the truth. One sip wouldn't be enough. One sip would just be prolonging the inevitable. This child needed real help, not false hope. So Travis did something that every survival manual said was suicide. Something that defied every logical calculation. Something that made absolutely no sense to anyone who valued their own life. He handed the entire canteen to the child and said, "Drink it all. You need more than just a sip." The young Drakari stared at the canteen in his clawed hands like Travis had just handed him a bar of solid gold. His golden eyes went wide with shock, darting between the container and Travis's face as if trying to understand what kind of trick this was. I only asked for one sip, honored stranger," the kid stammered, his voice still raspy but stronger than before. "Not the whole thing. You need this. Your suit, I can see the warnings from here. Red lights everywhere." Travis wiped the sweat from his forehead, feeling the heat pound against his skull like a hammer. "I know what you asked for, kid. But look at yourself. One sip isn't going to cut it. You're barely standing. Just drink." The Drakari child hesitated for just a moment longer, then lifted the canteen to his lips and drank. And drank. And drank. Travis watched as the water disappeared, each gulp making the kid's scales brighten just a little bit more. The cracks started to fade. Color returned to those golden eyes like someone was slowly turning up a dimmer switch. The child's breathing, which had been shallow and painful, began to steady and deepen. When the canteen was finally empty, the young Drakari lowered it slowly, staring at Travis with an expression that was part gratitude, part complete confusion. He looked healthier now, almost normal, but his face showed he couldn't comprehend what had just happened. "Why?" the kid asked, his standard getting clearer as his body recovered. "You're kind humans, you calculate everything, yes? I have studied your species in school. You measure risks. You plan. You think ahead. I can see your suit display from here. Water warning critical. Temperature danger. Heat exhaustion alert. You just gave me survival you desperately need for yourself." Travis felt his own throat burning like fire, but he managed a weak smile. "Where I come from, kid, we've got a saying. Today you, tomorrow me. Besides, you're just a kid. That changes everything." The young Drakari straightened up despite his obvious exhaustion, and something shifted in his posture. He suddenly carried himself with a dignity that seemed too big for his small body. "I am Scarth, third hatchling of Clan Flamecrest. My name means Ember of Hope, in the old tongue. My clutch siblings and we were separated from our expedition 6 days ago when the ancient ruins we were exploring collapsed. The ground just gave way beneath us. I have been searching for them ever since, but the heat, it is too much even for Drakari. 6 days. Travis felt a chill run through him despite the murderous heat. 6 days in this hellish desert and this kid was still standing. Still searching for his family. Travis had been ready to give up after just 3 days. "Travis Coleman," he replied, extending his hand. The young Drakari looked at it curiously, then grasped it in a strange grip that was part handshake, part something else entirely. "Human salvager, cargo runner, and apparently really bad at survival math. How long can your siblings last without water?" The question made Scartha's newly brightened scales dim again, and Travis immediately wished he could take the words back. "Not long," the young Drakari said quietly. "They are younger than me. Smaller. We Drakari are born from eggs, you understand? We hatch in clutches. My siblings, they are from the same clutch as me. Vresh is 8 solar cycles. Kryn is 7. And little Lyra, she is barely 6 cycles old. They need me." Travis pulled out his scanner and checked the readings. Then he looked at his one remaining canteen of water. Then he calculated the distance to the colony beacon. Every single number that came up told him the same thing. "Leave the kid here. Walk away. You just gave away your safety margin. One more mistake and you're dead." But then Travis looked at Scartha's face, at the hope mixed with fear in those golden eyes, and he heard his father's voice in his head. His old man had been a firefighter back on Earth, one of those crazy people who ran into burning buildings when everyone else ran out. Travis remembered asking him once why he did it, why he risked his life for strangers. His father had said something Travis never forgot. "Because someone's scared kid is in there, son. And that makes all the difference." "All right," Travis heard himself saying even as every logical part of his brain screamed at him. "Let's find your family." "Which direction?" Scartha's whole face lit up like someone had turned on a light inside him. He pointed toward a cluster of rock formations that shimmered in the distance, wavering in the heat like they might not even be real. "The old mining complex. That way maybe 2 hours walking. We took shelter there when we first got separated. There are deep chambers underground, cooler than the surface. But I left to find water. The maps showed a spring nearby. That spring dried up about 20 years ago, Travis said, checking his datapad. This whole planet's been dying for decades. That's why everyone left. He adjusted his pack and started walking in the direction Scarth had pointed. Come on. We're burning daylight, and trust me, you don't want to see what this place is like at night. Temperature drops fast, but the wind gets worse. Dust storms that can strip the scales right off you. They walked together through the red desert, an unlikely pair. The young Drakari moved with more energy now, his wings occasionally twitching like he wanted to fly but knew he wasn't strong enough yet. Travis kept checking his scanner, watching for any signs of life while his suit continued its constant stream of warnings. Tell me about your siblings, Travis said after a while, partly to keep Scarth talking and alert, partly to keep his own mind off how thirsty he was getting. What are they like? Scarth's eyes brightened at the question. Vresh, she is the smart one. Always reading, always studying. She wants to be a star navigator when she grows up. Heroine, he is brave but foolish sometimes. He thinks he is already a warrior, always challenging bigger hatchlings to sparring matches. And Lyra, little Lyra, she's the gentle one. She loves singing. Her voice, it is beautiful even for Drakari. She can hit notes that make crystals vibrate. Sounds like a good family, Travis said. The best, Scarth agreed. Then his voice got quieter. Travis, I need to know. Why did you really give me your whole canteen? The truth. Not just because I am a child. There is more, yes. Travis was quiet for a moment, his boots crunching through the red sand. You want the truth? I don't really know. Maybe because I'm tired of doing the smart thing all the time. Maybe because I've spent too many years calculating odds and playing it safe, and where has it gotten me? Crashed on a dead planet with no way home. Or maybe I just figured that if I'm going to die out here anyway, I'd rather die knowing I helped someone instead of just saving myself for a few more hours. Humans are strange, Scarth said, but there was deep respect in his voice. Every species in the galaxy knows this about your kind. You share when sharing makes no sense. You help when helping costs you everything. Other species call you reckless, dangerously irrational. But I think maybe they just do not understand. Understand what? Travis asked. That some things are worth more than survival, Scarth said simply. They walked on through the scorched wastes, following the path toward the mining complex where 3 more young lives waited, hoping someone would find them before the desert claimed them forever. And Travis tried not to think about his dwindling water supply, or the distance to the beacon, or the fact that he'd just committed himself to an impossible rescue mission that would probably kill him. But somehow, walking beside this kid who refused to give up on his family, Travis didn't regret a single drop. The mining complex appeared through the heat waves like a ghost from the past. Crumbling stone walls rose from the sand, half buried by decades of windstorms. Rusted metal beams stuck out at odd angles, and broken equipment lay scattered across the ground like the bones of some ancient beast. Travis had seen places like this before, abandoned industrial sites that told stories of better days long gone. There, Scarth said, pointing toward a shadowed area near a collapsed pillar. I left Vresh resting in that spot. She was too weak to go further. They hurried forward, Travis's boots slipping on loose rocks as they climbed over debris. His suit was screaming at him now, the warnings getting more urgent with every passing minute. Heat stroke imminent. Critical dehydration. Recommend immediate shelter. He ignored them all and kept moving. Behind the pillar they found her. The smallest Drakari Travis had ever seen, curled up in a tiny ball against the stone. Her scales had turned a dull gray color and she wasn't moving. For one terrible moment Travis thought they were too late. Then she stirred just barely. Her head lifted an inch off the ground and one eye cracked open. It was the same golden color as Scarth's, but so dim it was almost brown. Scarth, she whispered, her voice like dried leaves scraping against stone. You came back. I knew you would. Of course I did, Scarth said, kneeling beside her. And I brought help. Vresh, this is Travis. He is human. He gave me water and now he is going to help us all. Vresh's tired eyes moved to Travis, trying to focus. Human? But humans left this planet long ago. Why would one be here? Long story, Travis said, already unscrewing his remaining canteen. Right now, let's get some water in you. He knelt down beside the young Drakari and carefully lifted her head. She was lighter than he expected, her body feeling fragile like bird bones. He tilted the canteen to her lips and let the water flow slowly, watching as she drank in desperate gulps. Easy, easy, Travis said gently. Not too fast or you'll get sick. He gave her about a quarter of what remained in his canteen. With each swallow, a little more color returned to Vresh's scales. The gray faded to silver, then started showing hints of blue and green underneath. Her breathing got stronger and her eyes brightened. When Travis pulled the canteen away, Scarth was staring at him with an expression of complete disbelief. You did it again, the young Drakari said, his voice barely above a whisper. You gave away more of your water. Travis, I can see your suit readings from here. You are in the red zone now. Everything is flashing warnings. If you keep doing this, you will die. You understand that, yes? Travis looked at what remained in his canteen. Maybe enough for 2 small drinks. Maybe enough to keep him conscious for a few more hours if he was lucky. The colony beacon was now at least a day and a half away, maybe more. The math was simple and brutal. He just crossed the point of no return. Yeah, I understand, Travis said, standing up slowly. His legs shook a little and black spots danced at the edges of his vision. But she's just a kid, Scarth. What was I supposed to do? Watch her die while I stood there with water? Most species would, Scarth said, and there was no judgment in his voice, just statement of fact. They would calculate. They would measure their own survival against hers. They would choose themselves. But humans, you never choose yourselves, do you? Travis didn't have an answer for that. He helped Vresh to her feet, supporting her weight as she wobbled unsteadily. Where's the next one? Kerwin, you said? Inside the main complex, Vresh said, her voice stronger now but still rough. In the old processing center. He was too proud to admit he needed help, tried to walk further but collapsed. I tried to carry him back but I was too weak. They moved deeper into the ruins, stepping carefully over broken machinery and ducking under collapsed support beams. The shade provided some relief from the direct sun, but the air inside was still like breathing from an oven. Travis's vision kept blurring, and he had to stop several times to steady himself against walls. Finally they found Kerwin. He was bigger than Vresh, almost Scartha's size, but he looked even worse. His scales had gone completely gray, almost white in some places. His breathing was so shallow Travis had to watch carefully to make sure his chest was still moving at all. Kerwin. Scarth rushed to his brother's side, shaking him gently. Kerwin, wake up. Please wake up. The young Drakari's eyes opened slowly, taking a long moment to focus. Scarth? You should not have come back. Save yourself. Take Vresh and go. I'm already dead. You're not dead, you're just dramatic, Travis said, kneeling down with his canteen. Now drink this before I change my mind. He shared more of his precious water, watching as Kerwin drank with the same desperate need as the others. The transformation was remarkable. Color flooded back into the young Drakari's scales, this time showing reds and oranges like fire. His breathing deepened and strengthened. When Kerwin finished drinking, he looked at Travis with new awareness. You are the human who gave Scarth your canteen. He told me through our link. Drakari siblings from the same clutch, we share a mental bond. I felt him drinking, felt his life returning. I thought I was hallucinating. Not hallucinating, Travis confirmed, standing up again. This time the black spots in his vision took longer to clear. His suit had stopped showing warnings and had moved on to emergency alerts. His hands were shaking. Scarth caught him as he stumbled. Travis, you cannot continue like this. You have given us so much water. Too much. Your body is shutting down. I'm fine, Travis lied, straightening up with effort. You said there's one more, right? Lyra? Where is she? The 3 young Drakari exchanged glances and Travis saw fear pass between them. Finally, Scarth spoke, his voice breaking slightly. The deep chamber. The lowest level of the mine. Lyra, she's our youngest. She got scared when we first took shelter here. The darkness frightened her. So she tried to fly up toward the light, tried to find a way out through the upper shafts. But the heat up there, it is even worse than out in the desert. The metal and stone absorbed the sun's energy. She made it about halfway before she fell. We tried to reach her, but the passage is too narrow for us now. We are too big. Travis looked toward the dark opening that led deeper into the complex. His scanner showed temperature readings that made his blood run cold. Down there, it would be like climbing into an active volcano. How far down? He asked. Maybe 50 meters, Vresh said quietly. The shaft is steep. And Travis, you must understand. We have not heard from her in 2 days. She may already be gone. Travis checked his canteen one more time. 2 small swallows remained. That was it. That was all he had left between himself and death in this desert. 2 swallows that might buy him another hour of consciousness. 2 swallows that definitely wouldn't be enough to get him to the colony beacon. He looked at the 3 young Drakari standing before him. Scarth, who had walked for 6 days searching for water. Vresh, the smart one who wanted to navigate the stars. Carwyn, the brave one who wouldn't admit he needed help. And somewhere below them in the darkness was Lyra, the gentle one who loved to sing. 4 kids who deserved a chance to grow up. 4 lives that mattered more than his careful calculations. Well, Travis said, screwing the cap back on his canteen and clipping it to his belt. Let's go get your sister. Travis, no, Scarth said, grabbing his arm. The heat down there will kill you in minutes. Your suit is already failing. This is suicide. Travis smiled, even though his lips were cracked and bleeding. Maybe. But she's 6 years old and she's scared and alone in the dark. So yeah, I'm going down there. That's not really up for debate. He started toward the dark opening, but Scarth didn't let go of his arm. The young Drakari's golden eyes were bright with tears that evaporated almost as soon as they formed. Why? Scarth asked. Please, I must understand. Why do humans do this? Why do you give everything when you owe us nothing? When we are strangers? When it costs you your own life? Travis thought about his answer for a moment. Then he put his hand on Scarth's shoulder. Because someone has to, he said simply. Because if everyone just walked away from kids in trouble, what kind of galaxy would we be living in? Because your sister is down there waiting, and I'd rather die trying to help her than live knowing I didn't. That's just what humans do, kid. We don't always make sense, but we show up when it matters. The descent into the mine shaft was like climbing down into hell itself. Travis moved carefully, finding handholds on the rough stone walls while his suit screamed warnings he could barely hear anymore. The temperature gauge on his wrist had gone past red and into some color he didn't even recognize. Every breath felt like inhaling fire. Scarth, Vresh, and Carwyn called down to him from above, their voices echoing off the narrow walls. Travis, please come back. This is madness. But Travis kept going, one hand under the other, 1 foot below the next, descending deeper into the suffocating heat. The metal walls of the old mining shaft radiated warmth like the inside of a furnace. Travis's gloves were getting too hot to touch the metal safely, so he had to grip the stone sections, even though they tore at his palms through the protective material. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes, but he couldn't spare a hand to wipe it away. About 30 meters down, his vision started to blur seriously. Not just the black spots anymore, but full tunnel vision that made the shaft seem even narrower than it was. His hands were shaking so badly he almost lost his grip twice. The second time, his foot slipped on loose rock, and he dropped nearly 2 meters before catching himself on a metal beam. The impact sent a shock of pain through his shoulder, but at least he was still alive. Just a little further, he whispered to himself, even though he wasn't sure if that was true. Just a little more. Finally, the shaft opened into a larger chamber. Travis half climbed, half fell the last few meters, landing hard on the stone floor. For a moment he just lay there trying to remember how breathing worked. His suit was making a continuous alarm sound now, a flat tone that meant all its safety systems had failed. Then he heard it. A small sound, barely audible over the ringing in his ears. Breathing. Labored, painful breathing that came in short gasps. Travis forced himself to his hands and knees, then crawled forward across the rough stone. In the dim light filtering down from above, he saw her. Lyra. The youngest of the 4 siblings, and she was in bad shape. Much worse than the others had been. She was so small. That was Travis's first thought. Just a tiny thing, barely bigger than a human toddler, with scales that should have been bright and colorful but had turned almost completely white. Cracks covered her entire body, and a thin fluid leaked from the worst of them. Her wings were spread out limply on either side of her, and Travis could see they were torn in places from her fall. The worst part was her breathing. Each inhale sounded wet and wrong, like something inside was broken. Her eyes were closed and she didn't seem aware of anything around her. "Hey there, little one," Travis said softly, reaching her side. His own voice sounded strange, distant, like someone else was speaking. "Your brothers and sister sent me to get you. They're really worried." Lyra's eyes fluttered open slightly. They were the same golden color as her siblings, but so faded they looked almost gray. She tried to focus on Travis's face and recognition flickered there. Not of him specifically, but of what he was. "Sky person," she whispered in a voice so quiet Travis had to lean close to hear. "The Sky people left. Everyone left. Why did you come to the bad place?" "To find you," Travis said. He fumbled with his canteen, his fingers barely able to grip it properly anymore. When he finally got it open, he saw what he already knew. 3 swallows of water. Maybe 4 if he really stretched it. His suit was still shrieking at him. Heat stroke in progress. Organ damage probable. Recommend immediate evacuation. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. His vision kept fading in and out. Every logical part of his brain that was still functioning told him the same thing. Drink the water. He needed to climb back up. This child is too far gone anyway. Save yourself. Travis looked at little Lyra lying there, this 6-year-old who loved to sing, who had gotten scared of the dark and tried to fly toward the light. He thought about his own niece back on Earth, about the same age with the same kind of innocent trust in the world. Then he made his choice. The only choice he could live with, even if he wouldn't live long after making it. He lifted Lyra's head as gently as he could and brought the canteen to her cracked lips. Here, sweetheart. Drink this. All of it. No, Lyra whispered, somehow understanding even in her weakened state. You need. Sky people need water too. Brother told me. In my mind he told me. Sky person gave everything. You cannot give more. Sure I can, Travis said, managing a smile even though his face felt like it was on fire. That's kind of our thing. We humans were really stupid that way. Now drink. He poured the water slowly into her mouth, supporting her head, watching as she swallowed with difficulty. The first swallow made her choke a little, but then her body seemed to remember what water was and she drank more eagerly. Travis gave her every single drop, tilting the canteen until nothing remained. The change wasn't as dramatic as it had been with the others. Lyra was too far gone for that. But color did start to seep back into her scales just a little. The cracks stopped spreading. Her breathing got slightly easier. Her eyes opened wider and focused more clearly on Travis's face. Sky person saved me, she said, wonder in her voice. Like in the old stories. The humans who help. That's right, Travis said. His own voice was getting weaker now. He set down the empty canteen and leaned back against the wall of the chamber, suddenly too tired to hold himself upright. Your brothers and sister are waiting up top. They're going to be so happy to see you. You come too? Lyra asked, trying to sit up. You come meet them? Travis wanted to say yes. He wanted to tell her everything would be fine. But the darkness was closing in now, real darkness that had nothing to do with the dim light in the chamber. His body had finally hit its limit. He'd pushed too far, given too much, and now the bill was coming due. I'm going to rest here a minute, he said, his words slurring together. You go on up, okay? Your family is waiting. No, Lyra said, and despite her weakness there was strength in that word. No, you come. You saved Lyra. Lyra saves you. Travis tried to explain that she was too small, too weak, that he was too heavy for her to help. But the words wouldn't come anymore. His vision had narrowed to just a small circle of light, and even that was fading fast. The heat that had been torturing him for days suddenly didn't seem so bad. Actually, he felt cold now, which some distant part of his mind recognized as a very bad sign. He heard Lyra calling out, her voice echoing up the shaft. The words were in her own language, not standard, but Travis could hear the urgency in them. She was calling for her siblings, calling for help, refusing to leave him alone in the darkness. Good kid, Travis thought as consciousness started to slip away. All 4 of them good kids. Worth it. His last thought before everything went black was a simple one. He'd come to this dead planet expecting to die alone in the desert. But if these were his last moments, at least he'd spent them making sure 4 young lives would continue. At least he'd proven that humanity's reputation for impossible compassion wasn't just talk. At least he'd shown that some things really were worth more than survival. Then the darkness took him completely and Travis knew nothing more. Far above, at the top of the shaft, Scarth heard his youngest sister's desperate call and understood immediately what it meant. The human had given everything, down to his very last drop of water and his last ounce of strength. And now it was time for the Drakari to return the favor. Scarth didn't hesitate for even a second. The moment he heard Lyra's cry from the depths of the mine shaft, he spread his wings and let out a sound that Travis would have recognized if he'd been conscious to hear it. It was a distress call, ancient and primal, the kind of sound Drakari had been making for thousands of years when their clan was in danger. The call echoed across the desert, bouncing off rock formations and carrying on the hot wind. And incredibly, impossibly, it was answered. From the sky came a roar like thunder, and shadows fell across the mining complex. Dozens of them. Adult Drakari, massive and powerful, their wings spanning 10 meters or more. They descended like a storm of scales and fire, landing with earth-shaking impacts around the ruins. Leading them was the largest Drakari Scarth had ever been so relieved to see. Matriarch Sorith of Clan Flamecrest, his mother, her scales gleaming deep crimson in the harsh sunlight. She folded her wings and rushed to where her children stood at the mouth of the shaft. My hatchlings, she said, her voice resonating with harmonics that conveyed both relief and fury. 6 days we have searched. 6 days of terror. What happened? Where have you been? No time, Mother, Scarth said urgently. There's a human down in the deep chamber. He saved us. Gave us all his water, every drop. He's dying because of us. We have to get him out now. Sortha's eyes widened. A human? Here. But she saw the desperate truth in her son's eyes and didn't waste time with questions. She turned to the other adult Drakari who had answered the call. Gareth, you're the smallest of us. Can you fit down that shaft? A lean male Drakari stepped forward, already folding his wings tight against his body. I'll make it fit, matriarch. Go. Bring the human up. Carefully. If he saved our young, then his life is worth more than all the treasure in our vaults. Gareth disappeared down the shaft, his claws finding holds where Travis had struggled. Less than 2 minutes later, he emerged carrying Travis's limp body with surprising gentleness. Behind him came little Lyra, climbing slowly but steadily, her scales already looking healthier in the cooler air. Sorth took one look at Travis and her expression turned grave. His skin was frighteningly pale, covered in sweat that had stopped flowing because his body had nothing left to give. His environmental suit was completely dead, not even showing error messages anymore. His breathing was barely there, just tiny shallow gasps that came too far apart. Medical bay on the ship, immediately, Sorth commanded. Kelvor, prepare the cooling chamber. This human's core temperature is dangerously high. Vrath, contact the station, tell them we need human medical specialists standing by. The adult Drakari moved with military precision, but Scarth could see the problem in his mother's eyes. Drakari medical equipment was designed for species that thrived in heat. Their normal body temperature would kill most other species. They had technology to help Travis, but adapting it quickly enough might be impossible. The flight to the Drakari ship took only minutes, but they felt like hours to Scarth. He rode on his mother's back, watching as other clan members carefully carried Travis in a harness made from their own wing membranes. Lyra clung to another adult, too weak to fly herself, while Vresh and Kerwen flew on their own, their wings shaky but functional. Inside the ship's medical bay, chaos erupted in the most organized way possible. Drakari medical technicians worked frantically to modify their equipment. They filled chambers with cooling gel meant for treating fire-scale disease, substances that would feel freezing cold to a Drakari but might be just cool enough for a human. They rigged monitoring equipment designed for reptilian biology to work with mammalian systems. Through it all, Travis remained unconscious, his body fighting a battle it was losing. Scarth stood outside the medical bay watching through the transparent walls, his claws clenched so tight they drew blood from his own palms. This is my fault, he said quietly. I asked him for water. Just one sip. I never meant for him to give everything. His mother placed a massive claw on his shoulder. Tell me what happened. All of it. So Scarth told her. About stumbling through the desert, about collapsing in the sand, about begging a stranger for just one sip of water. About how Travis had given him the whole canteen instead. About how the human had then helped search for the others, giving away more water at each stop, ignoring all logic and self-preservation to save 4 young Drakari he'd never met before. Sorth listened in complete silence, and when Scarth finished, tears rolled down her scales. Not tears of sadness but of something else. Something deeper. Do you understand what he did? She asked her son. Not just the physical sacrifice but what it represents? He's human, Scarth said. They're known for this. The whole galaxy knows humans help others even when it makes no sense. Yes, but knowing about it and witnessing it are different things, Sorth said. She looked through the window at Travis's still form, surrounded by Drakari medics working desperately to save him. He saw you, a child of a different species, suffering in the desert. Every piece of data told him to save himself. His suit, his training, his own survival instinct, all of it screamed at him to walk away. But he didn't. He gave you everything instead. He said that's what humans do, Vresh added quietly. She had been listening along with Kryn and Lyra. All 4 siblings had gathered outside the medical bay refusing to leave. And it is, Sorth confirmed. But most species don't truly understand what that means. We Drakari value honor above all things. We would die for our clan, for our family, for those bound to us by blood and fire. But humans? They do this for strangers. For people they've never met and will never see again. They sacrifice themselves not because honor demands it, but because they simply cannot do otherwise. She turned to face all 4 of her children. This human, Travis Coleman, he measured your lives not by what you could offer him, not by logic or calculation, but by a simple truth that humans seem born knowing. That every life has value. That children deserve to live. That someone in need deserves help, even if helping costs everything. Will he live, Mother? Lyra asked in her small voice. Lyra wants him to live. He called Lyra sweetheart. Like father does. For 3 days Travis lay in that medical bay while Drakari doctors worked miracles. They cooled his body temperature degree by careful degree. They flooded his system with hydration compounds adapted from their own medicine. They called in human medical consultants from Drakar Station, who worked alongside Drakari specialists in a collaboration that became legendary. And on the 3rd day Travis Coleman opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was 4 young Drakari faces pressed against the medical bay window, all of them grinning with relief. The second thing he saw was Matriarch Sorith standing beside his bed, her massive form somehow conveying both power and gentleness. Welcome back, Travis Coleman, she said. You have slept for 3 days. Your body was very angry with you for what you put it through. Travis's throat was too dry to speak at first, even though he could see in 4 line feeding fluids into his arm. Sorith noticed and carefully lifted a container of water to his lips. The irony wasn't lost on Travis. He'd given away all his water, and now a dragon was helping him drink. When he could finally talk, his first words were, "The kids. Are they okay?" Sorith's eyes shimmered with emotion. All 4 of my hatchlings live because of you. They are healthy. They are whole. And they refused to leave this medical bay until they could see you awake with their own eyes. Good, Travis said, managing a weak smile. That's good. You gave them everything, Sorith continued. Your water. Your chance at survival. Yourself. You asked for nothing in return. You expected nothing. You simply gave because they needed and you could provide. They're just kids, Travis said, as if that explained everything. And perhaps, in the human way of understanding, it did. Sorith was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of ceremonial importance. The Drakari do not forget debts of life. But more than this, we do not forget what you have shown us. Other species call humans reckless, foolish, too willing to sacrifice for strangers. But we Drakari, who value honor above all else, we see the truth. She bowed her massive head, wings spreading in a gesture Travis somehow knew meant ultimate respect. Through the window he could see dozens of other Drakari doing the same. Adult clan members, all of them bowing to him. Humanity does not give because logic demands it, Sorith said. You give because it is right. You share because others thirst. You sacrifice because others suffer. This is not weakness. This is strength beyond what most species can comprehend. And from this day forward, the Flamecrest clan declares humanity as kin. Our fire is your fire. Our honor is your honor. Scarth pressed his claws against the window, and Sorith gestured for the young Drakari to enter. All 4 siblings rushed to Travis's bedside, careful not to jostle him but clearly desperate to be close. You gave me your whole canteen, Scarth said, holding up the battered container. The medics had recovered it from the mining complex. When I begged for just 1 sip, you gave me everything. I will carry this forever, Travis Coleman. And when I have hatchlings of my own, I will tell them your story. About the human who measured life not in survival probability, but in simple worth. Travis looked at the 4 young faces surrounding him, at the massive matriarch standing guard, at the dozens of Drakari visible through the window. He thought about the choice he'd made in the desert, about the canteen he'd handed over without hesitation, about every drop of water he'd shared knowing it brought him closer to death. Just doing what felt right, he said quietly. But as the news spread through Drakar Station, then to nearby systems, then across the entire galactic network, other species began to understand something they'd observed but never fully grasped. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their adaptability or even their famous stubbornness. It was their absolute, illogical, beautiful willingness to sacrifice everything for others. To measure life not in equations but in simple human truth that every person mattered, especially the young, the vulnerable, the ones who asked for just 1 sip but deserved the whole canteen. And in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, 20 years later, when humanity's petition to join the Inner Circle came to a vote, it was Scarth Flamecrest who stood to speak. Now a clan leader himself, he still carried that battered canteen on his belt. He told the assembled species about a human who gave everything when asked for almost nothing. About sacrifice without expectation. About compassion that defied all logic. And he asked a simple question that echoed through the chamber. If a species that gives whole canteens when asked for sips doesn't deserve to stand among the galaxy's greatest civilizations, then what does greatness even mean? The vote wasn't even close. Humanity was welcomed with honors rarely given, their reputation for impossible kindness finally recognized not as weakness, but as the strength that would carry them to heights other species could only imagine. And somewhere on Earth, Travis Coleman received a message from across the stars. 4 Drakari siblings, now adults with hatchlings of their own, all of them teaching their children about the day a human stranger proved that some things really were worth more than survival. The message was simple: thank you for the water. Thank you for showing us what humanity truly means. Your canteen is still carried. Your story is still told. Your kindness still echoes across the stars. Travis smiled, took a sip from his own water bottle, and thought about a desert planet where he'd made the only choice his human heart would allow. Today you, tomorrow me. That's just what humans do.